Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome back to Smash 4. Yeah, this is not me you're looking at here. This is someone else doing this because this is actually, believe it or not, um, something that I really wasn't looking forward to showing off, to be fair. Um, because this is what happens if you're on the max difficulty on Classic and you get to the point where you fight against Master Hand and Crazy Hand. You start with them, but you notice that something goes horribly wrong. You do a little bit of damage to Crazy Hand, and this happens. You're suddenly fighting a totally different entity altogether. This is called Master Core. He is definitely a thing, to be sure. He can turn into various different forms and stuff. And he certainly make it. The guy I'm watching is making this look really easy by compared to your atypical player. Because I would have died like 3 or 4 times by now. This guy does not screw around. You have to be a real pro not to get totally screwed by this. However, yeah, you can definitely tell that this requires a lot of legwork. I mean, jeez. Yeah, when I get to Ultimate, I'm gonna be talking about how boss fights really started to get kind of cumbersome and what they expect. I'm not saying they're hard per se, but what they expect from the player gets kind of silly though. Just like, come on. Mind you, Ultimate's probably gonna be the final Smash game, so it's probably gonna be as bad as it ever gets from this. I'm surprised he died at all, considering how good he was at the start. But yeah, now you basically fight a shadow version of yourself. This fight's full of all kinds of surprises. Yeah. That trippy background always freaks me out for some reason. And this is the Wii U version, by the way. This is not the 3DS version. If the higher quality graphics were anything to go by. There's some other changes that the Wii version had that I never was able to show off. Oh, never mind. Hold on. Oh, now he's changed into his ultimate form, Master Fortress. Yeah, literal fortress that you have to take out. Apparently, there's multiple places you can start at inside the fortress. But I think he starts off in one of the more ideal areas. You want to be very careful here too, because sometimes if you're hit even once during this phase, you can usually die. I'm not even kidding about that. Although he seems to be doing this pretty well. Using Bowser of all people too. Okay, you can touch those. They're not so bad, but... Oh, yeah, falling down there in that goop-like stuff, I think that's considered an instant kill. Not losing a life, I mean you instantly failed the challenge. Oh, we're not done yet. Yeah, this is kind of crazy what they expect you to go through to beat all this. Like, fuck, guys. Did you guys not think you were going a little overboard? Like, to find out Master Hand has multiple forms now, and He turns into some type of eldritch abomination. What the hell? Not sure what Sakurai was smoking when he came up with this like concept. Let's just put it that way. I mean, I'm not saying that to judge the guy. I'm just saying, damn, what the heck? Would people even really be asking for something like this? I'm not sure. I doubt it. People were as surprised as I was. They're like, huh, this is certainly different. I never beat Master Fortress. I was never anywhere close to being good enough for something like this. Maybe if I would have used like GameShark codes, maybe I could have done it, but... Oh, excuse me, Action Replay. GameShark is a thing of the past at this point. But yeah, I think I could have done it, but man, it would have been clumsy as hell. Oh. Ooh, that was a close one. Ah! Okay, I guess you can survive. Albeit barely. Yeesh. Yeah, this is just kind of insane. What more can I say about that? Okay, now is it over? It looks like it. Oh, right. You have to destroy it quickly, otherwise it can reform, I think. Yeah. I forgot about that part. So yeah, That's just like... What were they thinking, man? I don't know. He's not even bothering with this. I don't blame him. There's special unique stages to Wii U version. There is, instead of Smash Run, there's a new mode called Smash Tour. I think it's complete shit. Others don't agree, but whatever. The next major Smash game we'll be playing, however, is Ultimate. I kind of showed off all of Smash 4 that really needs to be shown off. I mean, sure, yeah. I could show off all the unique custom stuff, but... Spoiler, none of that's going to be coming back in the next game. None of it. Like, you can't... The concept of customs are not brought back. I think the closest you get is custom suits and stuff for your Mii fighters. That's still a concept, although not a terribly well handled one. Believe me, I'll get to it. But, yeah, I mean... That is basically... the last thing of Smash 4 I'm going to be showing off. Ultimate will be the next one I cover when I get around to it. You see, that's on an actual console, not emulation. So any of the pros that I've been using with emulation to make playing the game easier does not exist. Stuff like save states and speed ups. So that's going to be a little rough to get used to. Not only that, but there's some elements to Ultimate that just annoy the shit out of me. Believe me, we will get to it when we get to the story. Now, for the most part, I still think Ultimate is the best one, though. Most people tend to agree with that, although I've talked to a few people that think it's really overhyped. I don't think so. I think it has a great deal to offer. And it probably has the best content, I feel, of the whole series. I didn't mind going back to the old games. I mean, they're fine. I think Brawl's kind of lame, but both Melee and Smash 4 are pretty great to re-experience, and I'm not really gonna say I had a bad time. Even with Brawl and the stupid subspace shit, it was at least nice to show off the mode and get kind of my negative feelings out for it. Because you can whine and bitch all you want, but unless you have something to show, then people aren't really gonna have a good understanding on why you feel that way. It's important to actually show what irritates you so much about various aspects of the Smash series. So, I don't mind doing that. I will say, for the most part, however, I do not ever plan on going back to Brawl, though. I think it's just kind of a lackluster Smash experience, and I don't really think there is any reason to go back to it when we have such games as Smash 4 and Ultimate. They're just better crafted, they're better game experiences, the content is significantly better, and I feel like anything that you could say Brawl does well, other games can do just as good, if not just flat out improved. And yeah, I will say that I think people have really overhyped the fuck out of Melee over the years. Because, and I talked to someone about this issue when I was trying to get my computer up and running, and he said this. Melee is still technically a good game, but he said, I honestly feel that the fandom really loves it for reasons that I can't really respect them for. And it's due to the fact that they like the fact that it's easy to break. You see, Melee is back in the days of Smash when the way the games were developed there wasn't a strong foundation for how the meta of Smash was meant to be played, both in 64 and Melee. And as a result of that, people found tons of ways to do shit that, for optical purposes, you shouldn't be able to get away with. And he said, that's why they love it so much. They can just basically screw the rules and get away with so much complex shit that just makes them feel like they are unstoppable, especially if they've mastered the mechanics to an art form. And he said that's kind of why I hate it, though. They basically got to where that was the only game they wanted to play because they knew the game inside and out. And it just made them feel like they were king of the hill, basically. When someone would say, yeah, but we want to play Brawl this time, people would be like, hell no, man. I'm not playing that shit. Like he said, you gotta do half the stuff you can in that game. No, fuck that. I mean, hell, even when Smash 4 was a thing, and people were considering that for, like, competitions and stuff, they were like, no, Smash 4, you can't do half the stuff you could in Melee. The frame rate isn't quite up to par, and there are many problems that they kept bringing up when it came to character balance. Meta Knight was considered unfair in Brawl, and they claimed Bayonetta was just as cheap in Smash 4, so they wanted to disclude both games. Instead of, making the rules of just you don't allow these characters to be played, but no, they weren't okay with that. They wanted the games banned using any means necessary. Anything to keep another Smash game from entering Melee's turf. Well, enter Smash Ultimate, which at this point they had nothing to complain about. Or at least, Sakurai made sure there was nothing they could complain about. All those cool tricks that they loved abusing in Melee, you could technically do something similar in Smash Ultimate. all of the fancy, like, special techniques and stuff you could do, if not the if not were the exact same, but could be replicated in a way that could be kind of similar. The problem is that it wasn't complicated to do anymore, and pretty much anyone could get away with it. And there were some people who were complaining that Ultimate just didn't have as satisfying of an experience. Noobs were basically spelled N-E-W-B, not N-O-O-B, were basically able to quickly learn how the game operated, and quickly was able to learn how to be good with certain characters. Hardcore people who were part of the competitive crowd were a bit miffed that suddenly major competition was properly measured. And they, especially when it came to competitions, it was significantly harder for them to gauge whether they could beat an opponent or not. Someone even went so far as to say that Melee is still the gold standard, but the person in charge of the competition said that it's been a good 20 plus years since then, it's time to move on to the next generation. And they were starting to promote Ultimate being in competitions now instead of Melee. A lot of people cried foul over that one, but eventually they just had to accept it. And he said that's the way it was. They just were so afraid of being challenged in a way that they weren't considered super amazing anymore. And it got so bad that someone had a YouTube channel where they basically said that they stopped going to competitions because they just felt like the atmosphere has changed too much and they refused to participate. Of course, the guy was also called out for the fact that the only reason he chose not to come is because for the first time ever, he actually lost 3 times in a row, and they claim he was just being salty about it. The fact that he, being someone who was something of a major player before, is now getting decent competition and he just can't handle it. And it's not the first time that I heard that story, and he confirmed it. He said, "Oh yeah, this started to become a big thing where I used to go. I used to watch competitions and stuff." He said one person literally threw the controller down and ran out, claiming that he's not going to put up with this kind of shit from anybody. And like, he said it is awful. Just some of these old pros, just the way that they are acting towards the modern day Smash crowd. So much so that they've went out their way to try to shit on Ultimate in every way possible, looking for any little thing that they can think to make fun of it. I said, well yeah, what do you expect? When it comes to the hardcore nostalgia crowd, they will try the hardest to decry anything that they think might be threatening the thing that they're nostalgic about. I mean, I've known that for years. Nostalgia is very toxic, and it can affect people in very nefarious ways. I've had the displeasure of being around people that just suck when it comes to some of their feelings on nostalgia. I mean, people that I swear I cannot understand them in the slightest. Sorry about the chair creaking. But yeah, I cannot, and I repeat, cannot tolerate that kind of just perspective. Like, people are allowed to have different opinions, yeah, but when you start spouting off that everything except this one thing that you grew up with sucks by comparison just because it is as good as the good old days, yeah, you're not gonna get far with me on that one. I get so fucking tired of that being criticism. You know, I have some things I'm nostalgic for too, to be fair, but at least with some of those things, when I talk to other people about it, I like to really pay attention and look for things that I think is actually worth talking about. For example, I have a very good nostalgic connection to various old RPGs. Some have aged better than others, to be fair, but I do have a lot of nostalgic connection to them. Let me use two games as an example, though. One is the ever so acclaimed, famous Squaresoft RPG Chrono Trigger, and another one is the Natsume developed game Lufia 1. With Chrono Trigger, you don't have to try very hard. People understand why that game was such a success. It has a lot going for it. You know, it is very easy to talk to people about that game. Now, some people claim that it's a bit too overhyped and say that even though they love it, they will admit that people need to quit claiming it's the only really good RPG to still play on Super Nintendo. Which I agree with. Yeah, people need to not get that carried away. However, for the most part, people can agree it's at least a good game. Lufia 1, on the other hand, I love nostalgia for it, and I can enjoy it pretty well. I'd like to say I'm pretty good at it. But for someone who isn't familiar with the game, and more to the point, might be interested in hearing why I like it so much, yeah, this is a bit of a harder sell, because admittedly I like it just because I'm a fan of old RPGs. It's more of a personal thing with me. But if I had to think up any decent reasons why someone else would probably get into it, not quite so easy with this one. It is an old RPG in every sense of the word. It's not exactly creative, nor is it terribly unique with a lot of its aspects. As a matter of fact, it definitely has aged pretty poorly in the sense that a lot of the elements that makes up the Lufia experience hinges on very archaic uses of concepts that even by this point was getting a little bit antiquated, excuse me. Stuff like the bad random encounter rate, slow movement on the world map, heavy grinding required to get through certain areas. It even has a bit of a weight system to it that makes constantly wielding heavy equipment feels like more of a hindrance than being helpful. So, yeah, these are things that would probably keep people away from it than wanting to play it. And the thing is, I can't really blame them for that. When I first got into Lufia 1, it was in a day when I was starved for RPGs. I forced myself to get good at it because it's one of the few I had. Sure, this was technically in the PS1 era, and RPGs were becoming a bit more common than they used to be. But this was early PS1 still, and we didn't exactly have all that many. Like, we had a few. I mean, I had Beyond the Beyond, I had Wild Arms, I had Suikoden, and we had Final Fantasy VII. And those are all amazing, sure, but it wasn't enough for me, though. I had already beaten those games several times, and I was hungry for more. We finally found out that the Super Nintendo that we owned for years actually had a few RPGs on it that we never knew about. So, of course, we just jumped at the chance to get more, which we did. I actually got the Fall Fantasies, we got Lufia 1, and eventually Lufia 2. We got Chrono Trigger, and I'm trying to remember what the other one was, I forget. But, like, we got a few. The Fall Fantasies obviously were the big impression here, since these were games we never knew existed. And playing the most prominent 2D Fall Fantasies was certainly a treat. I mean, hell, I even like Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, and that's a game that's often shit on by fans for very much the same reason Lufia 1 is. Because while I was able to get really into its more simplistic nature, not all players were willing to do that, and they definitely wanted more of their RPGs than the simplistic game design that Mystic Quest offered. Still, I actually thought it was a charming game that I enjoy a lot. I can go back to it anytime. It's a short game, and the charming, simplistic nature of it keeps me constantly going back. I guess I like it for the same reason that I replay games like Dragon Quest 1, 2, and Final Fantasy 1 a lot. The fact that they're short and the fact that you can just quickly replay them makes them easy to access. Sometimes I'm just in the mood for a shorter experience. I don't want to sit down and play Final Fantasy 4 and Final Fantasy 6 for the 100th time, knowing I'm going to have to spend like 20 to 30 hours on it. I could like beat Mystic Quest in an afternoon. Like, it's just a short, almost junk food style RPG experience that I could just quickly plow through. It doesn't waste much time, and I still get a decent amount of enjoyment out of it, regardless. I admittedly kind of wish more RPGs would attempt the junk food style of game design where RPGs don't have to be super long and you could just get through them pretty quickly. Because having a whole bunch of RPGs that you own take about 30 to 40 hours, some even longer than that, it can be kind of cumbersome, especially if you're the type to want to play a series in a marathon, like people often do with Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. Yeah, that's kind of rough for me, especially when I know that the games last as long as they do. The first 3 Dragon Quest games might be a bit on the shorter end, but after that, they start delving into the 30 to 40 hour range. And back when I was streaming all those games, I started to quickly notice how long they were taking to complete. I mean, I wanted to get to the later entries, but it took me a while to get through all the different Dragon Quest titles, especially since I wanted to take a break and show off Dragon Warrior Monsters. Which, by the way, I still need to go back and do the ROM hack of Dragon Warrior Monsters 2, just to show off what that was like. Oh, also, I need to show off the 3DS version of Dragon Quest 8. So those are 2 games I still have to do before I can consider hanging the old ones up for good. Still not sure what I'm going to do about Dragon Quest 11. We never found the missing copy of 11. I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and buy it again. Because I eventually want to cap off the Dragon Quest games. Now people will say, well, 3 is getting remastered. You gotta play that? We'll see. It's going to depend on how good of a remaster this game really is. I know the graphics look interesting, I guess. They're basically using the Octopath Traveler style engine while intersplicing it with the Dragon Quest 3 sprites. I mean, it doesn't look bad. It certainly looks more balanced than the freaking Octopath Traveler sprites tend to look. Look, I'm not trying to knock the game for people that love it, but for me personally, the look of the game just kept me away from it. That and the difficulty. I saw other people play some of it, and it looks damn hard. I'm not really a big fan of that. So, but yeah, Dragon Quest 3 Remaster. I'm gonna wait until it comes out and gonna see other people play some of it. I'll have to decide whether I think it's worth it. Keep in mind, this would be me playing that game without emulation. Meaning that I don't have save states or speed up. We're gonna have to see if the Dragon Quest 3 experience, the new one, is gonna be fun enough for me to live without that stuff. Because Dragon Quest 3 is a very slow, methodical game. and requires a lot of back and forth. Not having speed up for that game essentially means that everything is going to go at a snail's pace, especially when you get the boat. So, I'm kind of concerned about that, not gonna lie. I mean, we'll see how it goes. Maybe the game is fast paced enough to where I won't notice, but hey, we'll see what happens. If they kind of do what they did with Dragon Quest XI, I'll get to it one day, where you could just speed up, like, combat, that would be a huge help. Because in that game, you could speed up combat if you got the Switch version, which basically made battles feel a lot more smooth. In the original Dragon Quest XI, everything was very slow, and for a lot of people, it was unbearable because of how long that game was. Thankfully, the Switch revised edition made it a lot more convenient for many fans. So again, Nintendo saving the day for that series too. Yeah, Nintendo's been doing that a lot lately, trying to take game series that other people just don't seem to know how to do right, and just try to make it better. I feel like myself, Dragon Quest XI is a game that I actually quit on when I got pretty far in because I was getting burnt out. If I play it again, I'm definitely going to have to pace myself a bit better when playing that game because, oh boy, it's a doozy. But for now, it's the last mainline title. I don't know when 12 is ever going to be released. I really couldn't say. However, I will say for the record, I'm looking forward to it. If for no other reason, that the main creator, Yuji Horii, seems to really think that this is going to be his magnum opus. As a matter of fact, he has made a point to mention it's going to be the last game he ever works on before he retires. And that's very disappointing for me. Because, you know, this is his series. It really is. And I just can't imagine anyone else doing a Dragon Quest that's not him. Like, the charm and likability of the characters in Dragon Quest was always because of him. You can't really have the proper Dragon Quest feeling without him. People say the design also plays a part in that because of... Oh shit, I'm having trouble remembering names right now. Oh, I can't remember the guy's name. The guy who does the design for like Dragon Ball. Akira Toriyama, there we go. I actually had to look that up. Man, that's bad. I should never forget his name. Anyways, Akira Toriyama. They think it would be the same. It wouldn't be the same if he completely goes away from the series too. But he also has made a point to mention that he also would like to retire because he just is kind of just ready to hang up work on Dragon Quest. Not to say he plans on retiring completely, but... Oh, hey, interesting. But, here's the thing to mention here. I think that while I would have a hard time grasping a Dragon Quest without Yuji Horii, I am not quite so sure if I could say the same thing about Akira Toriyama. And before you want to get the fire and pitchforks and want to crucify me, let me just say that I respect the hell out of Akira Toriyama being the kind of artist he is, but at the same time, I'm not exactly sure that I. Oh shit. Oh shit. Okay, never mind. For a minute there, I didn't think the stream window was working. It is. Phew. But okay. But Akira Toriyama's artwork and we've kind of parted ways. Now, I will admit that his Dragon Quest XI efforts were significantly improved over what had come before. I mentioned when I played Dragon Quest VIII that it was blatantly obvious that this was indeed Akira Toriyama at the helm. His other monster work prior to this, like you could argue that it had a very distinct feel for Dragon Quest. A distinctness that wasn't really present in any of his other work, which made it stand out more. Starting with the 3D games, though, they started to blend in a lot more with his other stuff, and I never liked it. And I still don't. Dragon Quest XI is the only 3D game where it looked like he was putting a lot of efforts in trying to add a distinctive look to the Dragon Quest characters. Whereas before that, yeah, the characters that he designed could fit right at home inside inside a Dragon Ball season. They really could have. There wasn't really enough effort to make them seem distinct enough not to be. I mean, hell, in Dragon Quest VIII, the main hero even would turn Super Saiyan if he went to max high tension, super high tension. So yeah, he was even trying to hide the fact that clearly these designs were Dragon Ball inspired. Heavily inspired. Oh my god. Man, this chair is bad about the creaking. But yeah, I was never quite able to get over that. As a matter of fact, a good friend of mine refuses to get into me talking about the Dragon Quest Heroes games, which are two games I also would like to play one day, but she never got into those because she just couldn't get past Akira Toriyama's design. She was never a huge fan of his type of art, and even though it was a little different for the Dragon Quest games, it wasn't different enough for her to get past it. I totally get that. I mean, myself, the whole Dragon Ball type design stuff, I am not really that interested, which is why I never took the time to watch Dragon Ball Super. It's because I just got to where I got tired of the Dragon Ball style design. And also, Dragon Ball in general was something that I was really into when I was younger, but now I kind of just don't get into shonen the same way I used to. And Dragon Ball Super does still play with all the themes that shonen usually is famous for, so I don't think I really stay invested for very long. It'd probably bore the shit out of me now, especially considering that anything that explains its narrative through just characters fighting over and over again is something that I just cannot enjoy for much time. Now you'd be thinking, wait a moment, you don't like that, yet you like watching the Pokemon anime. You're right, I do. But not because of the Pokemon battles. No, if anything, I think that's probably the weakest element of the anime, is just the fact that the Pokemon battles really do come off like they barely have anything to do with the characters, and really the spectacle of it wears off pretty quick. No, I watch it for the characters, though. Especially in the later seasons, after about third gen of the Pokemon anime, it seemed like they started to care a lot more about making the characters feel special and unique. Now, Gen 5 had a lot of issues. I'm glad that that's one I kind of skipped over. The second half of Gen 4 I never got to watch because fucking cable networks just screwed it over big time. So I ended up missing some of the best parts of that. I was meant to go back, but I never did. And I also missed Gen 5. Didn't realize just how much time had passed before I got back into it. I was going to give it a try, and my friend quickly took me by the arm and said, no, 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 no. Do not watch Black and White. I said, why not? He said, dude, you'd have to put up with Iris. I said, Iris? The champion? Or are we talking the gym leader? He said, neither. She's the female companion. I'm like, what? What? Why? What happened to Bianca? He said, oh yeah, Bianca's in it, but she barely does much, though. I was like, what? That's so stupid. And he showed me some clips, and I'm like, oh my god. This is what I'd have to put up with, huh? He said, I told you, man, you're better off just skipping over this one. You are not missing a damn thing. I said, apparently not. I don't even have any idea who this salon guy is. Like, he always talks about cooking and shit. Like, what's his deal? He said, he's just an idiot. Like that's all you need to know. He's just an idiot who loves to talk about cooking every chance he can get. He's just not very interesting. I said, yeah, I can tell. So, yeah, I never really cared enough to watch that one. However, I will say that as much as I didn't really care for Anne in the games, like being the main antagonist of Black and White, I heard he wasn't handled as badly in the anime, where they actually added a lot more depth to his character, and they actually had a decent voice actor portraying him, really showing his emotional state. But I would not be able to sit through a lot of the dumbass shit in Black and White to see that. So, whatever. Gen 6 is the one that I got the most into, though, after Gen 4. Yeah, the Gen 6 anime is amazingly good. Way better than I would have ever expected it to be. I mean, I liked the game too. Say as 6th gen, I liked a lot more than other people did. But man, the anime blows its shit out of the water. I mean, there is no contest here. The anime season representation of Gen 6 is easily one of the best Pokemon things I've ever seen. Not only because the animation is drop dead gorgeous, the hand-drawn animation mixed with the 3D CGI is amazingly well handled. The characters are on point. The voice acting is excellent. And some of the new characters are just really entertaining to watch. I mean, I could sit here for like 2 hours and talk about every little thing about Pokemon X and Y that I think is just so damn good. I mean, holy crap. They got their act together with this one. However, I have also heard really great things about what they consider the reboot era when it comes to Pokemon, which starts with Sun and Moon. I've heard very good things about it, and I'll take their word for it. I just haven't got around to watching it yet. I still have yet to finish XYZ, which is the final season for 6th gen. I've gone about halfway through. I gotta say, this is probably the weakest part of 6th Gen, though, just because it puts so much focus on Team Flare, which I do not like Team Flare in this. They were kind of just average in the game that they're from. They really didn't come off as anything more than just Team Rocket light, honestly. But in the anime, they actually are meant to be a very strong, intimidating threat, and I just do not like this. They were never really meant to be anything more than kind of a joke in 6th Gen. Up until you face their leader, Lysandre, anyway, at the very end. And I hate the fact that they're treated as such an intimidating force in this. Like, okay, yeah, they weren't very important in the game, but I don't think making them important here really does the show much favors. I liked it when it was just about Ash beating the gym leaders. They did a lot of really cool story stuff with him going through Kalos and just him experiencing all these weird adventures while traveling through the region. His relationship with Serena is also being handled really well. I loved it. And I feel like that's being put on the back burner just so we can do Team Flare. Like, what? Like, no. Why? They are not interesting enough for this. Get them the hell out of here. Seriously. And I've seen ahead. Team Flare makes up pretty much almost the entire season. There's only like a few episodes towards the end that doesn't involve them at all. And I'm sorry, but that bugs me. It seems like they're trying to go out of their way to take away what made the show great up to this point. Just so they have a lame excuse to throw the Emmy team in there at the last second. Personally, I don't think they should have even bothered putting Team Flare in the anime. I know people would have bitched. I know people would have. But honestly, I think having them here just ruins the integrity of the show. Personally, I just would have had Lysandre maybe be a foil for the team. Maybe have him show up for a few episodes to try to get in their way or something. Kind of like with Jesse and James and Meowth. But just having all of Team Flare being this massive enemy team force, it just feels disingenuous. And I have a feeling they're going to do what they usually do, where the good guys are going to get one-upped at some point. And then they're going to almost accomplish their plans, but the good guys have to win to the last second. And and afterwards, the enemy team just disbands for some reason. I have a feeling that that's where they're going to go with this, because that's how this usually works. And I am not going to be thrilled by that. The anime is starting to slowly lose its charm a bit the more they do a Team Flare. And who knows, maybe I'm worrying for nothing, but so far it doesn't exactly look like the good guys are doing much to get rid of them. And it looks like more and more, it looks like they're going to be bringing in some new powerful characters that are going to be able to one-up Ashen Gang, which I'm like, yeah, this feels very forced and not altogether very interesting. You know, if there's one thing that I think Digimon as an anime was handled so much better than Pokemon, is that at least the villains in all the Digimon seasons actually had a good narrative reason for why they were very intimidating and challenging. Usually the story did a very good job of portraying why story-wise, this villain was meant to be a major challenge for the good guys. I think all the various Digimon enemy seasons did a good job with that, at least the ones that I've seen. If you're curious, I've seen from Digimon Adventure to Digimon Frontiers, and a couple of episodes of Digimon Data Squad. Um, I've heard very mixed things about Data Squad, although I think the opening is pretty banging, but I've heard very questionable things about it, which is why I never got too far into it. I'll probably give it a fair shot one day, but Digimon Fusion, a which is the Americanized version of Digimon Cross Wars, I hear is the worst Digimon thing ever. Nobody has anything nice to say about it. So that already kind of concerns me. I'm like, yeah. If I haven't seen a single person that can say even the slightest nice thing about it, then that kind of says a lot for just how badly they butchered this. Which means, if anything, I'd probably want to watch it in Japanese. You know, if the dub is really that offensive. However, I'm not big on that. I have yet to see any major Digimon show in Japanese, even though I know many people say that you're not getting the true Digimon experience unless you do, since the dub has always been quick to censor certain aspects of the show by either covering up minor details that happen every now and then, or in some cases just change a character outright to be more palatable for an American audience. Yeah, I've heard this from a lot of people, but for the most part, it hasn't really ruined my experience of the show. However, for Digimon Fusion, I think I'd probably want to bypass this one, because I hear that it's a completely different show from the Japanese version. Not in terms of, you know, the animation or anything, but just in terms of the characterization. Like, I've heard very bad things about this, especially when it comes to the voice acting. Like, I hear it's actually ear-grating, listening to some of the voice acting in that. And I'm like, oof, really? So, kind of like what they did with Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds then, where they basically didn't really put any thought into the voice acting at all for that, and they just made it really terrible. Alright, well, if they say so. But back to Pokemon here. I'm gonna give the XYZ a little more of a try here. If things continue to be this bad, then I'm going to be fast forwarding through any part of the show that heavily has Team Flare in it and just bypass it. Or hell, I just might fast forward through the show until Team Flares just have the picture. Because legit, I haven't seen a single episode that hasn't at least partially referenced them in some manner. And that is getting a little bothersome for me. We'll see what happens. And in case you're wondering, well, why don't you just stream yourself watching online? No, I'm not doing that. I mean, hell, I'm already getting enough shit over YouTube wanting to geo-block my Yu-Gi-Oh! Retrospective stuff. Like, really bad about that. I mean, we're talking really, really bad here. Like, I barely had any footage up, and they geo-blocked it for pretty much every country imaginable. So unless you maybe have a VPN, you probably wouldn't be able to see it anyway. It's pretty awful, just how bad they've gone about that. I'm having to go out of my way to just post it off my random Google page to my friends through a download link, just so they can freaking see it. Do you know how obnoxious that is, that I have to go that far? Now people say, well, why don't you just put it on like Vimeo or something? I mean, that's an option, right? Yeah, but Vimeo also heavily restricts you on how often you can upload, which sucks. It would take me frickin' ages to post all the videos I plan on doing for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Retrospective. To get through all the seasons, these are going to be multiple episodes. we talk about many, many details about the show. Because, yeah, I find that for all practical purposes, I'm not gonna. This is not gonna be a one and done thing like most reviews are. I'm gonna be very detailed on my feelings on the show for this and GX. Maybe 5Ds at some point too, if I like it enough. I still haven't gotten around to watching more than a couple of episodes of it. Mostly because the dub sucked and I couldn't stand it. I'm probably going to have to watch it in Japanese. But yeah, I'm going to have to really do a lot of episodes of that to talk about all my feelings. Because yeah, I'm basically going to be doing it episode by episode. No, not like... I'm not going to be doing like one episode of video or anything, but I am going episode to episode, scrolling through various moments in there to see if there's anything I need to talk about. And if there is, then I am going to be talking about it. And that means there's going to be a lot of content for me to talk about. Now, I will be cutting out anything I find interesting in the Duel Monsters duels themselves, since I felt like those are kind of details that most people probably wouldn't care about all that much. I mean, most people know what the duels were like, and, you know, so what. But they might at least be interested in hearing what I have to say and what my personal feelings on the characters, though, and their experiences. Especially in the first season, which really had probably the most interaction between the groups. I mean, just with the few episodes that I've already covered, I am noticing that there is a whole ton of interaction in each episode. So much so that it's hard to look at any one episode and say, oh, this episode is boring, you can skip it. No, not here. In Duelist Kingdom, the first season, there is so much that happens in each freaking episode. I can't think of a single one that doesn't have something impactful that happens when it comes to the characters interacting. They jam-pack so much interaction in this first season. As a matter of fact, they do it so much that I think it actually makes the duels seem almost almost a little more boring by comparison. I mean, the duels can have a lot of spectacle, sure, especially for the first season, you know, back when that's all we had. But man, the character stuff is so jam-packed that the duels almost actually feel kind of short. Which they were. Many of the duels in Duelist Kingdom didn't last more than a single episode. And usually there's so much talking in midst of them that there's barely any action going on. It really does make it seem like the duels themselves are taking a backseat to the character stuff. Battle City and later, they were a bit better about it, actually having a decent amount of character interaction, but the duels were pretty good too. It kind of helped that they added more rules to the duels to where you couldn't just throw out a really good card on your first turn or anything. So the duels had to last a while, which gave them a bit more impact. GX especially was a lot better about this. Actually, having duels actually have a decent amount of impact with the characters, rather than them just running into crisis from, well, various things that were happening around them. That may not have made a lot of sense, but if you've seen as much Yu-Gi-Oh! As I have, it just kind of seems like second nature. And I'm getting way off track here. I need to just stop talking, because I'm just gonna keep blabbing and blabbing. When it comes to Smash Ultimate, I don't know when I'm gonna get around to that. I haven't played from a console in so long, it just feels weird to go back. Not to mention that there is a lot of technical stuff I need to worry about. Like if the Streamlabs stream can pick it up decently, And I have to get used to the fact that I'm not playing with a PS4 controller, I'm going to be playing with my Joy-Cons, playing it on Switch. So I have to get used to a slightly different control scheme here. I mean, it's not that different, but the way the controller feels is definitely different. And it's been a while since I've had to do that. One of these days I should just buy a Pro controller, which is a lot closer to how a PS4 controller operates, but money is tight, and I don't really feel like doing that unless I have to. But anyways, I'll talk to you guys later.